something that came up in one of our previous forums. We've had guests whose partners are also musicians, and had very different kinds of responses when they were expecting. So I'm curious, I know Alicia, your husband is also a musician. So have you noticed maybe when your babies were younger or when you were pregnant, like, when you were a new mom, did people have the same kind of similar reactions to Jason as they did you? Like, oh, you're a family man now. I guess you're going to scale back. Um, I'm also assuming that that happened to you. Maybe it didn't, but I'm just curious to know if you two were perceived or received differently when you were new parents.
I think I love the conversation, and I'm scanning through my whole career and my memories and diary entries so much with everything that Elise and Sarah, um, uh, uh, Nikki, everybody's saying. I think, I have to be very frank. Um, I like the look of people who seem generous to me. It's a kind of a style that I've always coveted. Isn't that fun? Like I covet the generous person. Like so I'm always looking at like when somebody does something magnanimous for me, can I repeat that thing they did? Because I know how I felt about that person when they did that for me. So sometimes I just kind of have in the back of my mind. And the job that I was about to go on a national tour, which was the biggest thing for me at the time that I would have done when I found out I was pregnant with twins. So I did no dates on that entire national tour. I was replaced and I was asked to transcribe what I had sung so that the replacement could like do what I had essentially felt, that I made, that I co-made. And at the time I thought, "Oh wow, my life is over." Over. You have a year of work and then you're like, "Oh, I have none. I have these children." Um, but then I was so grateful that my husband had a working career at that time. I think I kind of cut and move real fast, stick and move, stick and move. I don't try to unmake my moments. And my voice is shaking because I'm getting so close to something that is essentially true about how I divine things. So also that includes people. So as you were talking, I realized one of my favorite people to hire all the time is a father with children whose wife is the boss, right? That's a type that I like. A drummer like JT Lewis, so many children, such a strong life partner, such a open-ended view of what a woman can do and what a woman can be. So that in turns, or Thomas Flippin is married to Vicky Flippin, Reverend Vicky Flippin, pastor, doctor, running a program at Yale now. These people who understand diapering and weird schedules, they are grateful, might be not the right word, but they are that thing that I was. When that gig that I lost, that tour, that group has come back around to hire me for like 5 or 6 different things years later. So one, I'm glad I didn't go ham on the situation at the time. I just dove into something else because it takes people years to see how their actions affect other things in the world. And that's if they're empathetic and conscientious. If you want to write a piece for somebody, it takes years maybe before you will ask them and then before it will manifest. It takes years. People are looking at you for years before that phone call sometimes. And having the kids and kind of getting put on the side also forced me to make a lot of my own work. Every good kind of interesting thing I do that people ask me about, or my ability to do it for other people, is based on that time when I'm sitting with twin babies and my husband's in Turkey and my parents are just new retirees and they're on a tour of Asia somewhere, and my sister has a career as a school teacher. So I'm sitting there, and I remember calling. I like to say names. I just put the names on. I called Lamore Tomer, who was a producer with children, a woman, at the time, and I said, Lamore, I think my life is over. I have 9-month-olds, one on each hip. They will not stop screaming. They're so cute. Nobody's here with me, and I don't know what to do. And she said, close your eyes and picture what you wish you were doing right now. And I said, I wish I was singing Motown music in my full head voice, unashamed that I have a classical training, because I'm so proud of my classical training. I love it. I will never let it go. But there's a whole world of repertoire that is my equal home. And she said, oh, so you're Diana Ross in head voice? I said, yes. She said, well, go do it. And I did. And that's when I started getting reviews for my independent work. That's when people weren't like, you are Jason's wife. That was the thing that I did that really caused people to understand, maybe I have thoughts in my head that are technical. Maybe I do have 8 years of music education from Manhattan School of Music and Columbia. He met a really incredible woman. How about that? He met and curated and collected an incredible woman to help him build an empire. I collected and curated an incredible man to help me build my family. That was incredibly conscientious, self-conscious, so that when we got with 2 twins, 2 of them, this is why I used the timer before. I have twins. I got 2 hands, yo. You got 2 hands. We need 8. So some of these times you have to have your hands and feet get to cooking. And I have many videos, because that was his thing to do, film himself being a good dad. But yeah, thousands of hours of it. The full record, very little record of me being a good mom. Tons of record of him being a great dad. Instagram, the whole thing. It's incredible. He's so like this, right? But yeah, him singing to them, feeding them, making games, bath time rituals, bedtime rituals, running African drumming, so much beautiful stuff that looked like we were surviving, like pulling ourselves out of a hole, which we were every day. But actually, that's the world that I created. So, like, I feel very pleased right now. I don't really work with anybody that I would call a bigot. Nobody. I don't have any really like pea-sized brain people up in my mix. I really don't have any like jerks or assholes in my corroborative sphere. They don't have time for the nervousness they feel in my presence. I gotta go. Also, if you hire somebody with kids, offer to pay for their babysitter. You know what it's costing them. You pay that. And I think that by trying to break off more of my own fees, when I have parents, I've had sometimes, and the people don't know, I've sometimes had no budget. But because I know I'm inviting a parent, I pay them, and I don't tell them that this does not pay anything. I'm paying you something, because I know what it costs, and I need your brain. Bring that whole juicy brain in my project and take this check, and can we please have something that is good? And it always is good, because it just always looks like us. And if us is a mess, it'd be a mess, but it's a professional, high level, well-wrought, determined, self-knowing, understanding, hella vibey mess. And that's what turned into being in fashion a few years ago. So I just found myself in the world that I wanted to be in, and I think it's a lot of thousands of us like-minding, making that world be what we need it to be. Mm-hmm. And that's like almost everything I have to say. And that the kids see it, they see me cry. Mm-hmm. Oh, ma'am, if you hiding all that from your kids, you're gonna split in like psychotic, I think, split. And I think in the generation before it was necessary, but it's not now. The kids are so well educated, emo stuff all in school. They know what's up. They just tell them, I am super afraid that I'm gonna fall apart on this stage. They say, Mommy, you know this music? You sound good to me. What part don't you know? Just do that part. Yeah, man. You ate, but you know. And
Hmm.
here they will be, empathetic young men, or they'll be assholes still. But
Right.
when that right person comes along and reminds them, they'll already know how it goes. They go, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I remember this part. This is where you go out, but you come back fresh, and then we have a good time. I remember this. Let me let her go. Let him go. Let them go. They'll come back and they'll be better.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that, Alicia. I I'm thinking about the other day. I was having a very, very, very stressful moment. Very stressful moment. I've been doing pretty good for several months, but this past month it's just been like one thing after the other. I'm gonna be honest. And I was getting my son up for school, both of my kids, but my son gets up first. And, I had just gotten some more like just stressful news. And I just had to start crying. I just had to start crying. I was like, here it comes, my body's production of cortisol, what I mean? Like leaking through my eyeballs. And I had an impulse, to like not do it in front of Jonathan, right? To just, you know, because my whole thing is like, oh, I don't want the kids to be worried about me, like blah 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 blah, like that whole thing. But I also like stopped and I was like, you know what? No, I am just gonna let loose, and I'm gonna also say to him, I need you to make your own breakfast. Okay, I need you to just help me out in helping you out this morning because I'm having a hard time, you know? And he was like, because normally, my son's 13, so he's a 13-year-old.
Ma'am, I haven't been
Oh,
making breakfast since they were, no, laundry too, by the way.
yeah, I know.
Wash your own
Baby, I
clothes
know. I know.
now. Oh,
I,
yeah. Mommy got no time. Uh-uh. Uh-uh.
yeah, it's time. It's time. But also, I'm trying to like spend some time with him in the morning. My husband's been out of town. I'm like, all right, let's do breakfast. But I just couldn't get it together. I was like, you're gonna have to do it on your own. And he was in his normal kind of, I don't want to get up, I don't want to go to school. That's part of our routine, which is just like, oh my God, come on. But he snapped out of it, He was like, all right, it's cool. And he gave me a hug, and I got my coffee and I felt better, and I felt like, oh, okay, all right, good. Because now I don't have to exhaust the energy that it takes to, try to cover all that also, right?
And
And try
that's how
to
you
look
make a
like
man.
I'm
You're making
functioning,
him.
right?
Mm-hmm. That's the man.
Yes. So there's enormous, I think, value in that too. But it's an impulse. It's an impulse of mine not to, to be like everything's cool. Mom's got it under control. Everything's handled. I'm solid all the time. I'm not. That's a myth. That's a myth. Um, anyway, so that I think that's good. That's like practicing grace for yourself, right? Which is something I think we can all do more of probably. Right? Look at these babies we have with
I
us
know.
today. Look at all the babies. Oh my goodness. I love it. Can
You
we
know, Allison, do you think
Yeah.
like these women on Zoom?
Yeah.
I never saw me holding my kids. I think
Mm,
ever. When I see a picture that someone took of me holding them as little
mm,
babies,
mhm.
I'm looking at it like this. I don't have any images of that.
Oh
This
wow.
is really, I just want you moms to know, as hard as the pandemic,
Mm,
you will have a few tiny little plus side gems, and I think this is absolutely one of them. Baby, in the time of cell phones and self imagery and
mhm.
watching what you looked like. It's so precious.
Yeah, this is really sweet. I'm loving this.
I have 3 pictures of this, pretty
It's
much.
great.
Like, nobody had any hands.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Right.
look at Oh my God.
So, we're approaching like the end of our hour, but I just want to make sure if anybody here wants to talk about anything in particular that's on their mind or has questions for some of the other moms or anything like that, let's just bring it on. Um, Nikki's hand is raised.
I just wanted to share something to really kind of commend and keep you going in terms of the work that you're all doing as working moms, but also, you know, Alison and your other collaborators in terms of Matricalis, where I thought, well, what's the point of, you know, mothers in arts, mothers in music, mothers in jazz, you know, whatever it be. Why do we need these sorts of groups and the forums that they provide? And I'll share an anecdote, and I'm pressing my phone timer, Alicia, my virtual in my head. We'll see how well I do. But I was at a gig fairly recently, and it was I was hired by a male musician who has kids. And when I said to him, thank you so much for asking me, I was newly postpartum. I think she was about, I don't know, 8 weeks. And I said, I'm so touched you asked me. I can't believe you asked. I'm falling over myself. And he said, well, I spoke to my sister and I said, oh, do you think Nikki would be able to do it? Oh, but she's a new mom. And my sister and his sister, Amy Savini's also a mother who's a jazz musician. You want to see? And she said, we'll ask Nikki. And if Nikki wants to say no, let her say no. Don't preempt that she'll say no because she has a new baby and yada, yada, yada. So I said, oh, amazing. Well, you know, that's why I'm friends with your sister and she's an absolute goddess. But I was backstage with him and the other musicians and I said to them, oh gosh, we're having a harried time. She'd started refusing the bottle the week that I needed to get back to rehearsing and working. So it was very, you know, fun for everyone. And he said, don't worry, we're all parents here. And it was him and maybe 3 or 4 other lads. And there was another woman there who's fabulous, but she wasn't a mom. And he said, I remember when I was a new dad and I'd gone to my first gig and I was completely sleep deprived and I couldn't figure out how to balance being at home with a newborn and needing to practice and needing to go to a gig. And another guy at the gig pulled me aside and said, I'm a father too. And when you go home, just be there as a dad. Don't feel guilty for having split concentration that you should be practicing, but you also should be fathering. He's like, and I went home and I felt so much better. And I sat there and I listened to this anecdote and I thought, that's fantastic. But if his wife had been a female musician, she would not have been at a gig getting firsthand support, reinforcement, advice from other mothers in the artistic profession. She would be at home in a dark room, bouncing a baby, willing them to, I love you, but shut the fuck up. And that is why these forums need to exist, because the new mother, who's also a musician, is not at the gig getting pats on the back from other mothers who've gone before, you know, saying you're doing this, this is great. And so this is the only way to have this sort of support, that male musicians who are also parents and who are doing wonderful, you know, work and brilliant jobs as parents, they're getting it in real life and in real time. And this is the only way to bring it to women who are, because of what it demands from them physically, you know, for so much of the first, you know, year or what so of the baby's life. It's the only way to bring it to them. So I thought that that was a really lovely anecdote, but I was like, yeah, my fellow moms are not at a gig getting that firsthand kind of, this is how you do it, or good job, keep going. I was like, and that's why we need these forums. Anyway, that's
Maybe
all.
we need a set, like if somebody gets a few nights or something, maybe or 2 shows, maybe you have a breastfeeding show, so you can at 8 p.m. you could do your 7 to 10 p.m. feeding like in the theater, just like, right?
Totally, like they have movies for mothers that they can bring their children to, and everyone knows it'll be a bit of a, you know, you have gigs where it's like the first set is going to be for kids and parents and mothers.
That's a development. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, a lot of times we've talked about just kind of the big cultural shift that needs to happen in the spaces where, you know, we make our music and we have our concerts, just, you know, for there to be more accessibility for families to come and just feel free to breastfeed, chase the child across the stage, like whatever, you know, and make it more of like a normal kind of thing to allow to happen. But it's we're not even close to being there yet.
Yeah.
You
But
see
You know?
those symphony things where they read the book and you do see you see it there in the matinee daytimes, but the
Yeah.
price point, even when they make
Right.
it lower price for it's like wonderful programming. It's wonderful, but there's also like there's a place between the grassroots and how to professionalize it. And I would say in my rehearsals, even though I don't mind if a woman especially brings her child who is latching still, like really needs that presence there, I don't mind. But the learning curve on the mom to figure out that I don't mind and how to talk over a baby who is clawing on your face and you are yet focused on the work and talking to me through this, that takes the parent so much effort and potential shame based on how they were raised, that I find it's more uncomfortable for that artist to work through that than it even is for me to host a rehearsal where the child is present. Like, I don't care. To be honest, the kind of work I do, it's like sometimes the kids make it more interesting gurgle noises than what we're playing. It's like maybe we need to be more interesting, but it's hard for the parent. And so I think the idea of it being still professional, not a breakout moment there, then it's like on TikTok, this teacher teaching history with a baby on his, okay, like sensationalized, but actually professionalizing it. I think that, and also not that you are a hippie when you do it. Not that, I mean, yay, hippie. I know how I was raised, dashikis and all, but in terms of the overlay, maybe African, Scandinavian interactions I've had, there's a more comfort level with this. And I don't think it's a very East Coast thing in general.
I agree with you, Alicia. And I have often felt, I've always brought my son to rehearsals and many times to gigs because I couldn't afford a babysitter, so from a very early age, I taught him, like, you sit here, you're quiet, I give you something, would bribe him, and that he would, it always worked. And now he's able to sit through a concert. He's always, even like the most weird music, he's able to be there, and he might not like it, but he's there. But I did think about it many times, like how to make places more inclusive of, because I think there is a stigma about bringing kids to our spaces, and which is stupid, because we need listeners, we need people who grow up with the music and who are able to carry through like our legacy, and for sure we definitely need to raise new listeners. And the best way is really to bring children, and I often think, like, how come like big institutions, even like Park Avenue Armory, for example, where I've been artist in residence for a while, how come there isn't a child's room there, where like parents can come and just put their kids there, play and see a performance and then come back, or just something where it makes it a little easier for whoever has a child, because sometimes kids just need a car, a toy, like something. They don't need much. So I did think about that, like how come festivals, for example, don't offer babysitter like babysitter fees, or like someone who says, if you want to perform at this festival, we'll have someone to watch your kid during your performance, something like that. I do think those changes are possible, like, and also, like, I did think, like, what really motivated me when I had a child was, how am I going to make money if I'm staying home? So if we can create grants, for new parents that allows them, like, this is money for you that you can use to create a new piece while you're home with your child, but at least feeling some kind of motivation to do some creative work, even though like it's parental leave or maternal leave. So yes, I do, for example, in Portugal, it's normal to bring your kids everywhere. I can bring a kid to the jazz club in Lisbon, but here, like, I can't bring my child anywhere. It's like, oh no, there's a bar, like he can't be here. Like, he's not, like, this is just music. He's just coming to hear music, but I can't bring him. I can't bring him to the Village Vanguard, all this, or to Smalls, so So that creates it's like it's blocking as like I so many so many times. For example, the jazz gallery is a place where I can definitely bring my child, and it's
So
easy.
women led, women who's
Exactly,
running,
women.
right?
Motherland.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
She
yeah.
babysat my kids at Newport Jazz Festival. And then when she got busy, I hung around with the kids and brought them to the porta potty. It's like we're professionals doing childcare
Mm-hmm.
and we're professional musicians at
Yeah,
festivals being the babysitters.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Have you
yeah,
ever been cornered, finding yourself like, I am wrestling kids during a concert I could very well be on the stage for? No?
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, this reminds me, that's such a, it seems like such a real kind of no-brainer solution to some of these, just some of these issues, just going out and performing. And it reminds me, I went to this church once. I was at a funeral service, and the church had like a room, a separate room, but like a fiberglass window, so they could like observe the service. And it was just for the kids, like they could observe the service, but they could also like make noise and be kids, and kids have to move and do stuff if they feel so inclined. But it was very easy. Um, there was one person there. Now, mind you, it wasn't that many kids, but still, and how simple, how easy would it be to have something like that at like a festival, like you said, or in some of these concert halls, just to have kind of like a space where they could also, check in to see what's going on, and then, they got to stretch or do their kid thing, that's fine, but then like come back to it too. So it's like you're getting that exposure to the music. The children are getting their exposure to the music, getting the childcare that you need. They're getting their needs met. There's a little snack, they can have a little, apple or whatever. Whatever they,
Lawsuits,
yeah,
legal
bathroom.
lawsuits. Everything becomes lawsuits. And
Mm,
everyone is destabilized. I used to sell clothes at a maternity store and we got 5% commission. That's how old I am. I
mm,
worked in what was basically a mall job that paid commission to the saleswomen, and the great saleswomen, the really high paying one, high earning ones, they had their own toys. They brought toys of their own. And if
mm,
they got a good client who brings in a toddler and she's pregnant, she's trying on clothes. These women had women coming in buying clothes just so we watch the kid with the toys.
right.
Like, but now at a jazz festival, I'm trying to think of somebody enabled to bring a toy. What if the kid chokes on the toy? It's like, you can't give these kids plastic object. You can't. It's just, I think in the society, there's a
Mm,
disabilization. You used to have that like figure who would be like, he's who do you go to for popsicles? Would you let your kids be at a gig at Lincoln Center and there's just a guy who's known to love the music who hands out lollipops to the kids? That person has been villainized at this point. Like, you can't be giving candy to kids and be the one on the scene. It's like the woman who always brings cookies. Yeah, she better be related to somebody in that cast. We don't just take cookies that get mailed to the theater unless they come from Mrs. Fields Direct, wrapped in plastic. Everything is like very distant now in that easy way. And kids backstage with other players, if they don't grow up in it being taken care of that way, I think they resent it
mm,
when it's around. They're like, I don't have kids. Why are these kids here? And I mean, I don't say they don't have a point. So I don't know. I think the society in our little groups, we have to, like, I'm already just thinking like, okay, the next 5 things I do, how can I make it more interesting for people who really are in some kind of lockdown? And I have people in my life in parental lockdowns that I know about. So it's like, oh, how could I design this so they would come and have fun? I think solving it for ourselves locally, that's what I'm going to take out of this. And I thank you for that. I
mm.
might see some of those friends again
Right.
because they can't come out.
There's got to be a way.
Mhm.
We'll keep talking about this and come up with a plan, all of us, our community, put our heads together.